All right, I'm going to click broadcast now, and then 10 seconds or so, we should go live. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our Chamber Chat. My name is PJ Prunty. I'm the President and CEO of the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce, and I am honored to be joined by the President and CEO of Rizzo Companies, Anthony Rizzo Jr., as well as the Chairman of the Board of Directors for the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce. Tony, thanks for taking time out and joining us. First off, how are you? How's your family? How's that grandson, Mikey, of yours? How's everyone in your world?
Well, first of all, PJ, thank you for having me today. And we are all doing well. We're all practicing social distances as everybody else is, but the family's doing well, with the exception of my parents probably struggling because they are stranded in Florida. But short of that, everything is going well. And, you know, Mikey's here with me. So I bring him in every day. So Mikey's doing just fine. And my kids are doing well. So I appreciate you asking. I know your family is doing well also, because being the president of the chamber and my role as chairman, we seem to communicate quite a bit.
Yeah, I got an email from your father a couple of days ago. He was responding to the Housatonic Industrial Development Corporation, just kind of voting on minutes or something. And at the very bottom of his tagline, it said, you know, Tony Rizzo Sr. stranded held hostage in Florida or something like that. So
you know, we won't let him come home. So as much as we want them to be here,
sure,
we believe it's the safest thing for them right now.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to see my children the other day, which is the first time that we all got together in about a month. Of course, keeping our distance.
Sure.
We have reasons within our family that we have some who have health issues that we have to keep isolated and separated. So we do that.
Excellent. Well, we're joined by a couple dozen people here today, and I encourage those that might have a question for Tony to submit it through the chat feature down at the bottom of your screen. We'll jump into a couple of the questions that I have for you here. So let's talk about the construction industry. Can you give us some insight into how some of the jobs that you've been working on have been impacted or not impacted as a result of COVID-19?
Sure. First of all, I think we got to look at our construction's been deemed an essential part of the business. So we are open, and construction is obviously impossible to do from the comforts of your home. So you have to be in.
Right.
We are fortunate. We have a very dedicated staff that's really committed to what they're doing. They're committed to the job. They're committed to the people. And we got to make sure that we do our job and keeping them safe and keeping them informed, both in the office and out on the construction sites. But in particular, the construction sites, what's changed? I mean, we have had some projects shut down due to people testing positive. Some of these projects are even on the highway, so you are outdoors, you are outside, you know, and but you still got to practice your social distancing. Some of the guidelines that the governor has put in place, which are there to keep everybody protected. You know, it's okay if you're outside, that when you can do a lot of work outside, but when you're trying to do this work in a building and you got crews that go from 75, 80 people on a job, you know, the impact of the COVID-19 in some cases it dropped those crews to 45, and not so much because people haven't wanted to be there, but you almost can't avoid the close proximity of what they're working. So when you're trying to keep a distance of 6 feet and put the masks on, and just like anybody else, some of the personal protective equipment was difficult to get at the beginning. So you had to keep your distance. So you go to do different shift differentials. If you can get a building and expand it more where you get more areas to go, it seems to help. So we've been fortunate to be able to do that and keep the jobs running. We have had some people, as I said, who have tested positive that we've had to quarantine. People have been in close proximity to them that we've had to quarantine. But you just adjust. We pray for all their safety. But as you can relate to as a Yankee fan from last year, it was next man up.
That's right. Very true. You guys have several projects either currently ongoing in the greater Danbury area or in the hopper. Most notably Keystone Place. It's a pretty visible project over there near the airport. How is that project moving along? And are there any other projects that you can provide an update on for us?
Yeah, I mean, Keystone Place is going well. We did have a drop off in the labor force. That's one of the projects that we had to take a look at. How can we adjust course a bit? How can we maybe work different shifts? Maybe open the job up at night. But that job still seems to be on track. The goal is to be completed by the end of August into mid-September. But what you're concerned with the COVID-19, things that we still don't know is how it's going to impact the supply chain. We don't know how it's going to impact the labor force down the road. As our state reopens, we don't know what happens as more people maybe come back to work and the crew sizes increase. So when you factor that in, some of that's a little bit unclear. As of right now, we believe we're on track. We're doing a couple school projects, one locally here in Bethel, and it's the same scenario. The town has been wonderful. The superintendent has been great to deal with. But you're going through a schedule and you're trying to progress the job, not knowing if the students are coming back or not. And we have had people that have tested positive. So subcontractors that had to leave the job for a couple week quarantine and then come back to the job and get geared back up again. But we're working through that as well. And we hope to make up time on that job, given the fact now that school is not coming back and we do have sort of free reign of the building, but it's you still got to try to make up some ground. And again, same thing. We don't know what the supply chain is going to do to us. We don't know if we're going to have an impact on material down the road. We don't know if once things open up, if contractors now got to make up ground on other jobs that they were on, and if they're going to go back to those because maybe they still have a limited workforce. That's very possible. We had a state trooper on one of our highway jobs that we wouldn't have expected test positive, not knowing who was in contact with them. We had to shut the whole job down for 2 weeks. So those things happen, and some of it maybe is being overcautious. But so the projects are moving. They're moving okay. As you know, we're doing a lot of work at the summit. Right. The summit, the mindset is good. The attitude is very positive. When you have 1.2 million square foot of space, you can spread out a little bit more.
Pretty easily
for COVID-19. But we've addressed those hurdles as well. So and we try to make it a point to keep an open line of communication with everybody that's on the job. It's very important that if you hear something, you say something to them.
Yeah. So it seems like everyone in business and really overall has never had to deal with something to this magnitude, and it has such a vast impact basically on everyday life. What are some of the surprises that you and your team have discovered over these last few months that are either directly related to your industry or really just in general?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part again. I apologize.
I was just saying, some of the surprises that you've come across either in your industry or just in general as a result of COVID-19.
Surprises, I don't know that this is necessarily a surprise, but fear. People have a lot of fear. And when you're dealing with something that none of us have ever dealt with before, it's a first for us. There's a young president of a local organization that looks at me as an experienced leader. And I said to this young fella, you're getting just as much leadership experience as any of the rest of us have gotten because we've never been through this. I don't know if you know who that was. Do you recall who I might have been talking to?
I'm not sure. It doesn't ring a bell.
A fellow named PJ, but the reality is it is unknown. It's an unknown thing. So we don't know. And I think that fear that comes in and that being on edge and unsure of what's happening. If you remember early on, it was you could get it from touching paperwork, you could get it from getting your mail. Be careful if you get a package. Well, packages are delivered to construction sites every day. Well, if you're wearing gloves, that's okay. But if you're touching one item, you're touching another, and then you're touching it. The gloves become your hands after a while. So I think what you try to do is share as much information with your staff and your people as you can. You try to be as positive and upbeat as you can, and you have to show them that the leadership is there, that we're all in this together, because it is an unknown for all of us. But so I don't know that that's really a total surprise, but that would be one thing that just the fear that everybody had and the concerns that everybody has, and staying focused on your job when you're worried about your loved ones and how they may be dealing with it. And then how it impacts you with really people who have to go to work as their jobs are essential, and they have to deal with daycare. And probably one of the bigger surprises was truly something that should never happen in our country is the lack of supplies that were available to us.
Right.
I think that's something that we all have to look at in the future.
So we just got a question in from Cynthia Emery-Roy, who is actually going to be our guest on Monday, President and CEO of Regional Hospice. She asked, are all your staff wearing masks on the job and in the office? And then is Nikon up and running as well? She asked.
Well, our staff, what we're doing with our staff is we've set up social distancing in this way. If we don't have any meetings in small rooms, we don't have any meetings in cubicles as people used to like to gather.
Right.
We don't have any meetings in lunchrooms. We're an Italian family. We eat a lot, so we always bring a lot of food in. We've stopped from bringing any open food containers. So no, they're not wearing masks. What we've done instead is we have the team manager that we use for meetings. We use Zoom for meetings. If we are going to meet, we meet in the boardroom or our training room, which are fairly large, and we spread out so that everybody is 8 to 10 feet apart from one another. We have somebody that walks through our office and cleans it all day, back and forth. That's all they do. Wipe down door handles, wipe down counters, refrigerators. We've stopped people from coming in the building so they can drop stuff off down below. The only time we ask our people to wear masks in the building is if they're going to be in a common area where others are, and that's where we would ask them. But otherwise, no, it's not that they're all wearing them. As far as what my sister and my brother are doing with their business, I know they're up and running because they're on one of our projects and they're there. So so they are up and running.
So yes, Cynthia, they are up and running. So let's talk about the reopening of our state and the local economy. What are some of your general observations as to the phasing process that has been discussed at the state level? What challenges do you potentially see some businesses having to deal with?
I think I feel for all these businesses that are going, because it's affected all of us. I mean, we've had projects that we thought were going to start that have been postponed. We've had some projects that have been canceled. The bidding has stopped. So what's not affecting us in our case right now with our business is going to affect us down the road. Where even though we're open today, we're burning off a lot of backlog. We work
Right.
off a backlog. We bid projects to fill that gas tank, so to speak, and then we try to run the gas tank out. But you always got to look for what that work is down the road. So I think the way it's going to affect the construction industry is when that bidding starts to come back, there is going to be some sort of a gap that could affect us, and will have an economic effect. When I look at some of the plan that the governor's laying out there to open up, and you look at restaurants, for an example, to only be able to do outdoor seating and only have a certain percentage of tables that they can have, I think that's a challenge for the restaurants to open, to staff accordingly, to order their supplies accordingly, to know who's going to come out and how they're going to come out. So I think you're going to see some difficulty there. I think you know that I do see is a concern. Is some of those things open up? You start to open up the smaller coffee shops and those type of things. I think it's going to be people getting over the fear, and a lot of that's going to be as we get out in public more and we get out, whether we believe it or not. Listen, we're a nation of people that are social. We
Yeah.
are social. We embrace one another. It's what we do. And when you don't have the ability to do that, people have to have that comfort level. And I think it's going to be a combination of those things. And maybe some people got to stay off of watching too much of the news because it does put us into a little panic. But that's kind of what I see, PJ, that I think some of those businesses will struggle in that manner of how they're going to handle staffing, bringing their staff back, training their staff, making sure their staff is comfortable coming back to work, those who haven't worked, and how they're going to get the consumer to come back in the door and feel comfortable sitting down to eat.
Right.
If you look at it strictly from a restaurant standpoint, but that goes across for many of those businesses.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This is going to be.
And honestly, when you look at schools reopening, right? I know they're not going to be open this summer, but I'm glad the governor made the decision he made because we have to see where we are in the fall because these people all have to plan. People going to work. People now who are going back to work as businesses open have to deal with the fact that, okay, their kids aren't going to school. Mom and dad got to go back to work. Maybe they've been called back as part of the opening. How do they handle childcare for their kids? I mean, these are hardships that people are going to have and are going to have to deal with. And I think those are concerns that are there. And so, we give credit to the daycare workers that are there, and you hope that people have close family that can help them with their childcare needs.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's consumer, it's going to be consumer driven, no question about it. Some of the conversations I've been having with, let's say, barbershops or hair salons, they are not even really 100% comfortable opening up on May 20th. But what they've said to me is they said, hey, look, if we don't open up on May 20th, there's a possibility that we might lose clientele because they're going to be going to other places that are open up. So there's sort of these, unintended consequences that come from it, and, going to have to sort of make sure that everyone's comfortable. That's really what it comes down to.
It is that people have to be comfortable because we walk a fine line.
Yeah.
We're Americans, and in our country, we never put anything above people's health. But at the same token, if we don't open up soon, there may not be much to come back to. And as well as people's mental well-being. People have to be able to get out and function. That's what we do. Certainly, that's what we do in the greater Danbury community. We all know that. So those are, I think, some of the challenges that they'll have. But it is going to be to be strong.
Yep. So staying on the reopen conversation, Mayor Boughton has asked myself, along with Roger Palazzo, the Director of Economic Development for the city, to assist in creating a local reopening committee and long-term recovery plan. So putting your chairman hat on of the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce, what are some of your thoughts on some of the important focal points that you think this committee should really be sure to address?
I think they should encourage everybody to join the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I think no matter what, that's money well spent, no matter what our economic situation is. I think it's really to tie into some of what we've discussed. It's really to give people out there a comfort level, PJ. And I think when I look at what you've done through some of the chamber chats that you've done out there, some of the updates that you've been sending out through the whole email chain, and the webinars that have been put out there. Mayor Boughton has done a tremendous job of keeping the community informed and do it in an upbeat manner. I mean, when you have a mayor who's willing to do karaoke, that's pretty impressive. I think to do those things and we look at our tremendous healthcare that we've had, and Dr. Murphy's leadership. When you look at that and you look at those pillars that we have in this community as we start to reopen. I think it's a great idea to have that type of task force set up. And I think the biggest thing is to keep that communication to the people, both good and bad. You want to stay as positive as possible. You want to give them a comfort level. People have to have a comfort level. You know, PJ, all the businesses can open back up, but if the consumers don't have a comfort level to go back out there and feel safe, it doesn't matter who tells the businesses they can open or that they can't open. We are going to be driven by what the consumers do, what our community does. That's all going to be based on how comfortable those people feel. And I think that's the job that the task force has to look at. How do you continue to deliver a message through the chamber, through our hospital, through our mayor's office, to give people that comfort level and how we can go about doing it? Can they get a little bit more open-minded? You know, we have areas where we don't have restaurants all over the place that have outdoor seating. So is there a way that we can allow them to bend the rules a bit to expand some tables onto the sidewalk to give them the opportunity to open? You know, especially when you look at our downtown area, you know, can we utilize our green in some capacity? I don't know the answer to those questions. Those are the things that all of you on the task force will look at, and I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job. But I think that's got to be some of the focal points. How do we get the businesses obviously to open, but how do you give the consumer and the community that extra level of comfort that they can feel comfortable coming in, bringing their children out again? You know, because even when we talk about children, children don't get it, or children have a higher immune system. You know what? Try telling parents that they're not going to want to take that risk unless they feel there's comfort. So I think that's the thing, is to continue the education of something that we're all learning every day.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And communication is going to be critical for this task force or committee or whatever it is we decide to name it. So this question is kind of out of left field, but what are some of the everyday normal routines that you have been missing as a result of the social distancing measures that have been in place for 2 months now and will be for the foreseeable future? And if I can start in saying handshakes for me, I'm a big handshake kind of guy. Being in the Chamber of Commerce, that's like our bread and butter. So not being able to shake people's hand has been like, oh man.
PJ, I'll tell you the things we all take for granted, right? When I look around and I see, the first thing I would tell you that I miss is I miss hugging my children.
Yeah.
My children are grown adults now, but we're a family that embrace. So you miss when you see them, putting your arms around them and hugging them. I miss holding my grandson until my daughter lifted that restriction on me after 7 weeks. She finally allowed me to hold him. So that was good. But we're people that engage. So yes, I miss the handshakes. You miss embracing people when they come into your office. You've been to my office, you know how we are.
Yeah.
I miss cutting up my supersata and sharing it on the table for a meeting. I miss playing golf, not that I'm any good at it, or bocce. Now bocce is much better for me because athleticism doesn't play in. So and it's probably the only sport that my restraint in height benefits me to play. But those gatherings to get together with family and friends, we always have our house is my wife will tell you that it's too big for us now, but yet it always seems to be full. Although in recent times it hasn't been, and that's something. So getting together with your friends and getting together with your family and having those kind of gatherings, we miss. I miss holding my first meeting in the new chamber chamber boardroom. I haven't been able to do that
in this office right here.
I see that you are there. So those things I think I miss. I miss sharing. As I mentioned earlier, I started out as a joke about food, but the reality is I do miss sharing that with our people in our office. We have a tradition in our family. We make an Easter bread every year, and we always bring it into the office and we deliver it to friends. And we haven't been able to do that. We didn't even make it this year as a group. They made it as individuals, which is not something that we do. In our family, everything is big. So I think the last big thing we did was a simple family birthday party of 75 people before the outbreak really got bad. And that's just another day in the neighborhood for us. So we miss those things. I think that's what I really miss the most. I think the things that we all take for granted
Yeah.
is what we hope to come back soon, and it'll be there.
Right. It will. I agree. It's going to take some time.
It will take some time.
All right. A couple more questions, but I wanted to just address something that Wayne just sent in through the chat. He says, I'm a massage therapist who works out of my home studio. Something the task force should look at are the availability of PPE masks in particular that will need to be available for us to open. Wayne, it's funny you mentioned that because just before Tony and I went live, that is exactly what I was discussing, how we're going to be pivoting now, from the PPP, right, all the loan stuff, to talk about the PPE to help some of the businesses open up. So we will be, as a chamber, as well as the committee, will be focusing on that. We've actually, just driving into the office today, I had a conversation with a local distributor who can help with the face masks as well as the hand sanitizer. So we'll be sure to keep everyone updated on that. Again, if you have any more questions for Tony, now is your chance. Submit it through the chat box there. One or two more, Tony. So you and your father, known for providing your homilies, right? Which I've been fortunate enough to be on the receiving side from both of you for over the past couple of years. Many of the area businesses in our community, they've been facing these challenges head on, right? But what advice can you provide to them to keep them strong through these next several months that are ahead of us?
I think what everybody has to focus on, PJ, I'm somebody who, and my father especially, but I'm somebody who believes in my faith. I always have. I believe the good Lord will test us every day. But I don't think he'll ever put more on our shoulders than any one person can handle. I think as a community, as a country, we're being tested. I think maybe some of that comes from people got to be willing to work together and cooperate with each other a little bit more. Sometimes we all get caught up in our business so much that we lose the sight of integrity and just compassion for one another. And I think that's important. And I think so. I think if they stay positive, they stay strong in their beliefs and their convictions, there's nothing that we couldn't handle. And when I look at this whole situation, I believe when we're all done and we come out the other side of this, I believe we're going to be a stronger country. We all know we're already the greatest country in the world, but I believe we'll be stronger. I believe we'll be better people for it. And I also believe the greater Danbury community is going to be better and stronger, because I think people are going to want to be in Connecticut, and I think people are going to want to in particular be in Danbury. And I think that's something important. So I think we have to look at the positive side. You see a lot of people, we all talk about what we are missing. Even one of your questions is, what do I miss the most? The question that we haven't asked for some families is, what have they gained?
Yeah.
There are families who have spent so much time with their children, quality time, that under normal circumstances they don't get. And I think you have to try to look at that positive. There are families who are not distracted right now by everything that's on TV, because there's nothing on TV. So you're having a conversation with one another. I grew up in an era where we talked at the table. Unless my father wasn't talking to us at the time. But other than that, that's how we grew up. And I think if people stay focused on those positive things, we always seem to be dragged to what's bad. We always look at that glass as half empty. I'm a firm believer that you got to look at the glass as half full. You got to look at the reasons why things are here. Don't try to dissect it too much. Just, it is here and we have to face it. If I'm to look at that, I think we're going to be better people all the way around. And I think I would say to that, PJ, that all starts with community leadership. We've been very fortunate to have a mayor that I think sometimes is taken for granted because of the amount of time that he's been in his office. But even through these times, the message that's being delivered by the mayor, the message being delivered by his people, the people and the staff at City Hall are still reachable. They're not closed. You know, you look at that, and that's a positive. We look at our lenders, our financial institutions. You know, people have always made the joke about bankers' hours. I don't believe that exists right now. These people are working harder than most people out there to take care of the PPP for a lot of their clients. What can you say about our healthcare workers? I mean, you can't say much more than to just thank them, from Dr. Murphy, because the tone is usually set at the top. And when you look at the leadership that he's provided and what New Vance has been able to do, and all of the medical staff and the nurses and doctors, and you can go down the line, and the supply chain and truckers. I mean, just those are all positives. Look at what people are doing to help fellow citizens that they don't even know. And I commend you for the job that you've done, keeping people informed, doing what you have to do. I think is very special. You're taking your job seriously. You're doing the job that you have to do in a time that's difficult without having all the facilities around you. And I think it's all been going well. So that's what I would say. Stay strong and stay positive, and let's look ahead. That rainbow will be there again.
Yeah. Keep punching, right?
Keep punching. That's what we like to say, right? When you get knocked down, PJ, we get up and we keep moving forward. And I think that's what people, PJ, you have to understand, we are a people that will complain about how cold it's been outside if only it was warmer. And the minute we get 3 days of 90 degrees, we're the same people that will say, when will it ever get cooler?
Right.
This is what we do. This is obviously above that and greater than that. When you look at this pandemic, one life lost is too many. But it's again, something that nobody has seen since 1918.
Yeah.
And here we are. I don't think we'll see it again, but I do believe we'll be more prepared.
Yeah, no question.
That's your homily, PJ.
There you go. We should end on that note, although I'm just going to recognize Cindy Seville. She said, hello, PJ and Tony. Keystone Place, Worcester Heights, Tony. Just want to thank you for all your hard work. They have so many excited depositors and are thrilled with your continued progress on the construction of their new home. Keep up the good work, she says. So thank you, Cindy.
Now, thank you very much, Cindy. I appreciate that, but that's her underlying message to say, I don't want to hear anything. Have the building done. But it is exciting, and we're happy about that project because it's a nice segue from that retail side of town into the residential area. So I think it's very good. PJ, I'm gonna just circle back to one item when you talk about businesses opening. Even when you look at retail that has to open, I think people will police themselves accordingly. I think people are open to that. And I think we really, as we open, have to trust our people. If you think about where we are right now, none of where we are, we can have the president and the doctors up on the screen every night, but none of this happens, the curve, the apex, any of it, without our citizens doing the job that they did. They did not have to stay at home. There's rules put in place and people could venture out, but they took it seriously. They hunkered down. They cared about one another. They did what they had to do to protect themselves, but more importantly, to protect friends, family, strangers to them. And I think if we trusted them to do that, as we open back up, it's okay to trust them that when they walk through the mall and they walk through a supermarket, that they are going to wear those masks for the time being, that they are going to keep a social distance from one another. And I give them tremendous credit. You're through a crisis, we're proud to be Americans.
Absolutely. Tony, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. I'll be seeing you at 8 a.m. Friday morning for our annual board meeting.
You will. We are going to do it on Zoom, right?
Right, we are.
So we
Absolutely.
will see you 8 a.m. Friday morning, PJ. Keep up the good work, my friend. And thank you for all that you've been doing through this crisis as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate your continued support and leadership as the chair of the chamber. So we will be having AFC Urgent Care, Tom Kelly, the owner, along with Dr. Ali, Friday for Chamber Chat. We'll talk about some of the antibody testing and some of the healthcare struggles that are still going through. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate it. Stay healthy and stay safe. Take care.
Thank you. God bless.